Thank you, and good afternoon. And thank you again for inviting us to this global competitive forum here in Riyadh. I'm actually very honored to be here, and I'm also very honored to introduce you three of our Entrepreneur of the Year winners. Thank you also for joining this session, where entrepreneurs would speak out and hopefully tell us a bit more about entrepreneurship and how it brings economic growth. First, I think I have to tell you a bit of a background about our Entrepreneur of the Year program we organize as Ernst & Young. It has started about 25 years ago already, and it's first in the US. And it has now grown into kind of like the biggest global competition. We run Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year now in about 54 countries already, worldwide. And our global network with high-growth companies is really growing very rapidly. Actually, we aim to have, for this year, about another 8 to 10 programs, especially some in Africa and even here in the Middle East as well. We at Ernst & Young perform a lot of research with our Entrepreneur of the Year winners. An analysis conducted by us revealed that winners and finalists from our Entrepreneur of the Year competition outperform national trends. They really boost headcount, on average by 18% already since 2009. And that compared to the fact that the combined jobless rates in several G20 countries increased by at least 10%. That is, I would say, kind of like proving that entrepreneurs do make a difference, especially in economic growth. Our research also concluded that high-growth companies run by world-leading entrepreneurs, as they are able to find opportunity in adversity and not only navigate through that, but thrive within today's difficult economic environment. And by doing so, they support economic growth and they create jobs. Our research tells us that those entrepreneurs are risk takers, natural networkers and optimists. And I think I've met all of you for a couple of times already, and I think those characteristics do fall into place with you as well. They tend to have a clear vision, both personally and for their business, and they inspire and motivate those around them. And this panel of Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year winners from around the world, and they will explain a bit about themselves in a minute, will share their stories of success and tell us why entrepreneurship is so important to global growth. So what are the secrets of their success? We would love to hear that from our panelists. But before I will ask each of you to introduce yourself, as well as tell something about your company, I would first shortly introduce myself. My name is Andrea Vogel. I work at Ernst & Young as an audit partner in the Netherlands. Perhaps you can already tell from my accent. And I am indeed chairing strategic growth markets in our firm for EMEA, and that is Europe, Middle East, India, and Africa. So hopefully the rest of this hour we'll have a good discussion on entrepreneurship. And perhaps, Yasmine, you would like to start kicking off and tell something about yourself and about your company.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for attending. I know that the worst part of the forum is always after lunch. That's why I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. It's a story in a kind of my life. I'll tell you what I'm doing as business. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing as charity for civil society, what were the awards that I was honored to be given. I started 32 years ago with my family business. I worked with my father in shipping. We are Maersk ship agents in Latakia in Syria. I am born in Syria. My mother is Serbian. That's why I look like Europeans. But my father is Syrian, and I am from Syria, and I always lived there. 2 years ago, I started by my own 2 companies, Aliyam for import-export and Aliyam for shipping. Last year, exactly 11 months ago, I signed a contract with the government by virtue of which I started an investment in a cooperative. And I started a chain of supermarkets. It's called Miramart. I'm owning now a mall, which is in the neighborhood of Damascus. It's in Qudsiya. You'll hear a lot about it in newspapers. And I'm doing fine in business. We are struggling, but I think that's why entrepreneurs are. I was the first lady in Syria to be, let me tell you what, I don't want to say all the time, I am, but I just want to show you that we can do if you want, and always there should be somebody who will be the first. I was the first lady 12 years ago to be nominated as a honorary consul female in Syria. I was the first woman, of course, to work on shipping. I was the first lady to enter Chambers of Commerce and Industry board as a board member. I was the first lady to enter Tartus Port as a board member also. I am the first and the only woman in the UN Global Compact Advisory Council in Syria. I am very active in the civil society. I love it, and I feel that I have to help my society because it's thanks to my society that I arrived to what I am now. That's why I'm sitting in front of you. I am the head of a very nice NGO that I love. I established. It's Bashair Noor. We have a school for children affected by autism and Down syndrome, and we have workshops for them. I am the head of Mawrid, which is an NGO modernizing, activating women's role in the economic development in Syria. We have a business incubator for women. I am the head of Latakia Business Women Committee. I am the head of a very nice housing committee. But you know why I love it? I love it because I said that anybody who wants to subscribe in our committee, she has to be a woman, because not all women in Syria, they have their own apartments or flats. So I said it's a nice opportunity, just to let them feel that they owe something. So my Dolphin Housing Society is really for women only. I have an NGO for protecting forests in Syria. And for the last 8 years, I am making trainings for businesswomen in Latakia, being the head of Latakia Businesswomen Committee at Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am a board member at Aude Bank Syria. I'm representing Syria in the Arab Business Women Council in the Arab League. I am board member at OECD, and I am a board member in 4 business committees in Syria: Syrian Dutch, Syrian Indian, Syrian Chinese, and Syrian French. Awards. Now, all what I'm doing now have been awarded, and thanks God, I'm always glad because I never, ever wait to be awarded, so it comes by itself. I was, first of all, decorated by Her Majesty, the Queen of the Netherlands, to be as a knight. It's a very high decoration. It equals to lady in Britain. So I was decorated for my services to both countries, to Syria and the Netherlands. I was chosen twice by Forbes Economic Magazine to be among the 50 most powerful businesswomen in the Arab world. Last year, I was nominated by the Arabian Business among the 100 women who made changes in the Arab world. And recently, I was elected or chosen by Ernst & Young to be the Entrepreneur of the Year in Syria. We were 120 competitors. We were 8 women, and I was the winner. The most important and the story of my success is by my unpaid job, which is being a mother. We have to give it time. I have a child, two children, a boy and a daughter, and they always have priority in my life. I think that time management and to love all what we do is a secret, and to have always positive thinking, to have a clear vision, and to look ahead is a secret, maybe, of being a good entrepreneur. Thank you.
Thank you. So perhaps, Diana, you could give a short elevator pitch on yourself.
It's very hard to follow a lady as accomplished and who has achieved as much as you have. I come from the other end of the world. I come from a tiny little country called New Zealand, which is a group of a couple of islands off Australia. It's a privilege to be here amongst you. I think I've probably travelled further than any of you. It took us 2 days to get here. And when I came here, the most exciting thing that I saw was my very own ice cream. I own an ice cream company called New Zealand Natural, And I was fortunate enough yesterday to go to the Panorama Mall, and there in the mall is my ice cream. And as an entrepreneur, there is no bigger thrill than to walk into a shopping mall somewhere that's on the other side of the world, and there is someone wearing a uniform you designed, selling a product you designed in a store that's yours. You walk out of there thinking, yeah, being an entrepreneur is pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud of myself. The reason I'm here is because earlier this year, or last year actually, I was asked to judge the EY Entrepreneur of the Year competition in Monte Carlo, and met Yasmin, who was one of our competitors, and it was a real thrill to see the world's best entrepreneurs. And one of the things as judges we asked ourselves is what makes an entrepreneur? And I think you covered it really well in your introduction, but what we found was that there's something extra, and that's that all of them have something called the X factor. And the X factor is they never, ever want to give up. They want to keep trying. If something goes wrong, they do it again. I'm yet to meet an entrepreneur that hasn't failed, and that makes them better and stronger, but it's the lessons that they learn. And my lessons started when I was very young. I was adopted into a very poor family who didn't believe in education for women. So at 15, I was a typist, but by the time I was 30, I was running a worldwide plastics company. We had manufacturing plants in the United States, in the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. I sold that business about 20 years ago and then decided I wanted to do something more. Because, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, it's never the end. It's always what's next, what's the next big thrill. And so I looked at what New Zealand could offer the world, and it rains a lot in New Zealand, which is kind of hard to describe when you're sitting in Saudi. But in New Zealand, it rains almost every day. One of the things that you get when it rains is fantastic grass. So we don't have very hungry cows. Our cows are extremely well fed. There's 6.5 million cows and only 4.5 million people. So when I looked around as to what I could do with our rain, I looked at our cows and I thought, well, they'd process it pretty well for me. And so we decided to create an ice cream business, and we wanted to take that business globally. And that's something that we've been able to do. So we're very grateful for the rain. We're very grateful for the lessons of being the tyranny of distance, really. Because you've got to think, when we send a litre of ice cream to Saudi or we send it to China, imagine how hard it is for you when you buy your ice cream in the supermarket to get it home without melting. Well, it's very, very difficult for us to take that ice cream from New Zealand and have it in your Panorama Mall in Riyadh. So there's been lots of challenges, and being an entrepreneur is dealing with those challenges, finding a way around it, making sure your ice cream's not melted in Riyadh and it still tastes as good as it did in New Zealand. I've been involved in several businesses since my plastics business. One of the others that's given me great excitement and a sense of real achievement is the health business. Until about 15 years ago, New Zealand had no private health. It sounds a little bit like the Saudi system from what I was hearing earlier, that the government provided health. We decided that if you wanted to be able to buy health, it should be like any other commodity. So now we've got New Zealand's biggest, well, it was our only, but we now have competition, healthcare business, where just last year we did 65,000 operations. So, again, something to be proud of. And it's about being an entrepreneur. It's about seeing opportunities where others don't, taking them, taking the risk and creating things. So, I took a risk. I came on a plane and I came to Riyadh today, and thank you. Thank you for having me, and it's been a thrill, and I look forward to answering questions afterwards.
Thank you, Diane. Jim, your turn. Can you tell us something about yourself and your company?
Sure, thanks, Andrea. It's a real thrill and an honor to be here, and especially to be a participant on this panel with three very accomplished women, both accomplished in their business activities, but in getting to know them over the last day, knowing that they have good work-life balance, they have interest outside of their business, and the energy that these three women bring to the workplace, they bring to everything they do, as you heard with all their charitable activities that they're involved in addition to their day jobs. My story is a little simpler. I've only have one business. It's a company called 1-800-Flowers.com. We are based in the United States, and we're the largest florist and gift shop in the world. We're a company that was born 35 years ago when I was 3 years old. I started this company. And during that 35 years, we've seen dramatic changes in the way we do business. And we've been affected by technology several times. So when we started out, I started with a single flower shop. We grew it into a chain of flower shops. And then we changed our name of the company to 1-800-Flowers when 800 number calling in the US was the new technology, believe it or not, 25 years ago. And that gave us an opportunity to change the way the flower industry worked in the US and, in fact, around the world. It wasn't long after that that these new technologies started to appear on the scene. One of them was this online world. And so it was an easy decision for us to make. And in that time, I have a younger brother. Ours is a family business. So although I started it, my younger brother joined the business. I have 2 sisters and a brother, all of whom have worked in or currently work in a business. And all of our children and nieces, nephews have all had an opportunity to work in the business. The opportunity ends when they graduate from university, though, when they're required to leave the company and go work in a real world environment. And after 5 years, if they've accomplished something in the real world, working for somebody else, or educationally, or both, then they're allowed to apply to come back if they so choose. I have had 2 of my children come back. Only one is still at the company now. But 25 years ago, when my younger brother joined the company at a university, it gave me the opportunity to pursue other initiatives. And then it was this online world that was emerging. Now we know it as the internet. But over the first 5 or 6 years of the internet, we could invest and experiment around with it. And lo and behold, the internet has become so important in all of our lives, it clearly changed our business too. So we changed our name to 1-800-Flowers.com. As I say, we're based in the United States, but we're increasingly doing business all over the world. So when I had the opportunity and the invitation from the Sagia and from Ernst & Young to come here, it was an opportunity for me to get to meet some really interesting and talented and warm and wonderful people over the last couple of days, and not the least of which are my panel participants here. But the opportunity to have interesting conversations, the fact that ours is a family business, and so many of the people I've met with here come from family businesses or involving their family business, I found to be a very interesting tie. And the fact that so many of the Saudi people that I've met in the last few days know the United States well, know Europe well, and know the markets that we work in fact, know our company, was really a delight to me, because as we divide labor within our company, it's my job now, separate from my brother's who operates the company, to pursue the new things, the new technologies, to pursue the new partnerships. And so I'm happy to say that we have found wonderful local operating partners as we expand our business in Europe, in South America, soon in Asia. And as a result of some of the wonderful opportunities I've had in the last couple of days, perhaps to plant our flag with wonderful local partners here in the Middle East, starting perhaps here in Saudi. So it's been a really eye-opening experience for me, a wonderful experience that I've had the privilege to be a part of. But that all started for me, frankly, back 22 years ago, when this new program, which was only 3 years old at the time, called Entrepreneur of the Year, where someone nominated me and our company to be involved in that. And frankly, it's been a very important ingredient in my business life and in my personal life, because it gave me, as a small businessman, the opportunity to be exposed to some wonderful role models, to look over the shoulders of a professional service firm that's like none other in the world, to learn from them. The value added from them isn't that they're not just good auditors and good accountants and good tax people, but they're also people who develop processes and systems that, as a small businessman who didn't ever work in a large company, had the opportunity to borrow some of their best ideas in terms of how I recruit people and how we train people, how I treat people who used to work for us. In my first 10 years in business, if you worked for us and you left, I didn't want anything to do with you anymore. But having watched the way Ernst & Young cultivates their alumni because of the business they can bring in and the relationships they can develop from that, I mimicked that program and changed the attitude about how we relate to the people who used to work with us and cultivate those who left on good terms as part of our alumni too. So for us, it's all about new technologies, new markets, and finding new ways to help our customers express themselves and connect to the important people in their lives, wherever they might be in the world.
Thank you, Jim. And actually, The three topics you ended with are all about, I would like summarize innovation, and that is something I will want to address in this discussion as well. But first I want to take a step back and really want to hear from you, because I know, because I work as an auditor, I have a lot of clients, that today is a very difficult and volatile market, not in every place, but it is if you looked at, especially, for instance, at Europe, and perhaps even the US. And I really would like to know from each of you what it really takes to succeed in today's difficult markets, because I know all of you are quite successful still and always have been, so you must have had something you did different from other entrepreneurs or even perhaps large multinational companies.
Okay, I'll say something in this issue. I think that we are known to be risk takers. So it means that we have to take risks and we have to struggle and we have to fight and we have to win at the end of the day. So if we can live and survive in the hard circumstances and conditions, so it means that in good and calm circumstances we will be flying. So I think that all entrepreneurs are risk takers, and this positive feeling that we have, the inner feeling that we have positively, it pushes us towards success.
Okay.
Can I just add that I think the big difference between entrepreneurs and business people is an entrepreneur is someone who's really quick on their feet. An example of this current environment for us is obviously it's really tough to grow businesses in Europe. So we're looking at other markets, and India's been fantastic. For us in ice cream, of course, going back to what I said earlier, it's all about being able to get the product to market in great condition. And so if you can imagine how hard it must be to do that in India, where the light goes off for 3/4 of the day. But we've found ways around that. We've found better partners. We've built better relationships and allegiances. And so we looked at different countries. We've broken what was our normal traditional model of trying to break into Europe and gone, well, where's booming? China's great for us. So we've refocused our business. We've opened offices in Asia. So I think that's the difference between an entrepreneur and a business person. An entrepreneur is always looking to change the paradigm, look for different ways of doing the same thing.
I heard something today in conversation with the three of you earlier that I think is a differentiator. And you probably a dozen times today asked why. And Yasmina asked why not. And I think those are two questions you hear from entrepreneurs a lot. Why and why not? And I think then after you answer those questions, our jobs as either business leaders or entrepreneurial business leaders is to make allocation decisions every day. Allocation of your time, of your resources, of your people, looking at the opportunities and decided where you devote your resources. And that's going to change depending on the environment you find yourself in and the opportunities you perceive. So ask why. When you don't like the answer, why not? And then our judgment, our decision has to make, we have limited resources. How do we maximize those resources? How do we get more? How do we leverage them? And then where do we deploy those assets?
I think the other thing about being an entrepreneur is realizing that it's just you. You've got to make that decision, but when you look in the mirror, you can't blame anyone else. There's no one to hide and there's no one to hide behind. So you've got to make it right, and if you don't, you've got to accept your failure and carry on over the next hill.
So in that case, everybody gets a voice, but not everybody gets a vote.
Great, isn't it?
Okay, well that's very interesting, because you say, well, you are an entrepreneur and the difference between an entrepreneur and a businessman is this and this and this, but what we tend to see around being with entrepreneurs is that entrepreneurial leaders are made and not born. I don't know if that is correct, but if that is the case, what is it then that you really learned or did that you become such a successful entrepreneur? What is it?
I told you, I didn't know that I'm an entrepreneur until Ernst & Young came and asked me to be in the competition. So I discovered that I'm a real entrepreneur. When we were interviewed in Monaco, we were listening to other stories. So I found a lot of things in common between me and other entrepreneurs. So I think that I cannot say that I am born maybe with entrepreneurial spirit, but I am sure that circumstances gave me the chance, gave me the push, and I was fishing for it without knowing.
Okay.
I believe quite the opposite. I think that entrepreneurs are born. I always say that being an entrepreneur it's in my DNA, it's in my bones. I can't imagine being anything else but what I am. And I've also found it really hard to breed entrepreneurs in my business, because if they're entrepreneurs, they don't want to work for me, they want to work for themselves. So it's when people talk about an entrepreneurial spirit in the business, it comes from the top. But you made a very interesting point about people that you leave, or leave you. One of my earliest experiences was, what do you do when you've built a business and that really fantastic key lieutenant does all the things that you dreamed about and has your entrepreneurial spirit and wants to go? And in several instances, I've partnered with them. And I think that's a great way of retaining what you've inculcated in a person, but retaining it for the business. And you can stand back and watch them fly to the moon, but you can be on a little part of the journey.
One of the things that I've picked up today in our conversations, and I heard some in the general sessions, Dr. Porter this morning talked about the culture and talked about the prestige within that culture. Now, because I've been at this a long time, so 35 years ago in the US, I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I wasn't familiar with the term, and it really wasn't very celebrated. And I think the fact that the culture that I was fortunate enough to be born into, and that has evolved and changed in that 35-year period, where all of the bright young talent that comes out of university or decides to skip university because they have a burning idea, feel that it's fashionable to be in business for yourself. It's acceptable to have a failure on your record, even if you don't like it, but you recover from it quickly. And that although the cultural shift has gone so far in the other direction, as a result of programs like the Global Competitiveness Forum, as a result of the Entrepreneur of the Year program, as a result of YPO and all the support organizations that have developed around the world, the culture has changed in the developing world and in the developed world, where these are people who are seen as heroes. I will tell you that I lost people who were working for me 30 years ago because their significant other thought they needed to work in a big brand name company. They're sorry today because there were so many more opportunities in our small business, but just as recently as 30 years ago, people couldn't be seen working for a florist when they could work for something like Citicorp. And it's still attractive to work in those companies, but more and more the best talent out of school wants to be in their own business. And I think a big part of that is the recognition in the atmosphere, but it's also the enormous amount of money they can make in the internet kinds of businesses.
It's interesting that you say so, because this morning I was in the plenary session for Michael Porter, and he told me that entrepreneurship is such an important thing here in the Middle East. And I wonder, when you tell the question where you say, or you tell the story where you say that in the US it changed over 30 years, where entrepreneurship more or less was kind of like fashionable, and that is that something that government has to stimulate, or do entrepreneurs rise up themselves? How does it work, do you think? Or is that perhaps a too difficult question?
I'll say from my perspective, having morphed into an e-commerce internet company, we've looked at a wonderful little experiment that's gone on now for 20 years in the world, which is this thing called the internet. And the reason why I think there are so many bright and talented young people attracted to that world is that it's cool. There are great financial rewards. And the other thing is it's got very little restriction. You don't need a permit. You don't need anybody's permission. You can go try something completely new and foreign. It's celebrated and applauded. And so I think that laboratory is a good lesson for the rest of the world, which certainly you see being embraced here in Saudi, which is let's take the restrictions off and let businesses form. The tax situation here, the celebration of entrepreneurship. And it's easy and it's inexpensive, and when they work, they have a disproportionate payoff in terms of the number of people who are impacted and the financial rewards that come. So that little experiment, I see thoughtful governments and leadership around the world saying, let's look at those lessons and let's apply it to the whole of our economy.
Okay, thanks. Okay, innovation, I think, is a subject I want to address as well. And I really would like to know how important innovation is to your business, or still is, I would say, but was in a number of moments in time. How big of a role does it play?
Well, obviously, I'm doing something pretty boring. People have been making ice cream for hundreds of years. But I look at a business like yours, and, you could have been a florist, but instead you're a multimedia multinational. And it's because... Florist. But you have beautiful flowers. but you've taken a very simple product that we've all had forever, and you've found a new and exciting way to market it.
Excuse me, I think the idea of exporting ice cream from New Zealand into the middle of the desert here is not something that everyone would have thought of doing.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's had its moments. but to see what you've created, you've taken the innovation that's been necessary to take flowers to where it is just huge. And I think that makes the reason that we're all here, because nobody knows what the next internet's going to be. You wouldn't have known 30 years ago that you would be selling flowers in the way that you are. So that's the excitement for people that want to start businesses today. The future is so vast. I mean, when I started in business, there wasn't such a thing. We had no mobile phones. We had just got faxes, and at the very beginning we used to have to go into rooms, a telex room, and actually have people type messages that went around the world. I mean, your business couldn't have existed in a dream like that.
Well, they're both dreams and nightmares, right? Look how much your business has changed just in the last couple of years, Yasmina.
Yes, it did.
Technologies can be your friend if you embrace them early, and that's the challenge, because things are going along pretty well. Oh, let me blow it up and try and do it differently on a new technology platform.
Yes, exactly. And innovation is very important, even in shipping, which is less possible. But we have to find new ways, we have to find new attractions for customers to come and ship with us. As far as my new business is concerned, innovation is very important also. But we have to follow also technology and all the new ideas. And I always say that technology is not waiting for us. It's running, and we have to run behind it just to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Andrea, there was a really interesting panel in here yesterday about the new world cities which will be built around airports. You spend a lot of time in an airport and live in a country where the airport is the critical hub of all the business activity. How is technology changing how you do your job in managing this worldwide professional services organization?
Oh, good question. No, but I think, especially for us as well, innovation is very, very important. And you wouldn't, at least I wouldn't have expected it if you asked me the same question 5 years ago. But actually, social media is of relevance to us as well as being a professional service organization. And especially if we want to really serve our clients in the best way, we have to keep up with what is happening around the world as well, because I, as a consultant, always have to be one step ahead, so to say. So I'm not telling you, if you are my client, how you should innovate your technology, but I do need to know where you're going to, and whether or not, if you're going into that direction, that I should warn you, well, hey, Jim, if you go into that direction, please see and have a look at the tax impacts. I don't care, but we have to be innovative as well, not just as being, in my case, an auditor, in being tools and all kinds of, but also in delivering our service.
I thought all of our mobile devices and Skype would allow us never to have to travel.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well in our company. We really should cut not just the expenses on travel, but we have to travel less, and we are really using...
You mean relationships really do matter?
Yeah, they do. But I'm trying to find out, because you sound as if it's like very easy to be innovative, and I know it is not, because I see a lot of large multinational companies as well, especially, for instance, in pharmaceutical industries. They are really have trouble in getting innovation and R&D into their company, getting the right people. It sounds so easy, but it isn't. Just tell me a bit more how you integrate innovation in your company, or is it you that run innovation? How does it work in your company? Because I know innovation is important.
Why don't we start with, you have a public health system in New Zealand, and you decided it's not good enough, and you're going to create a hospital that did 65,000 surgeries last year? Who do you go to with that crazy idea?
Yeah, well, it's good to start with the patient. It was the customers that said to us, it was me sitting at dinner parties and talking to friends, and they were saying, I'm reading that in SADA you can have your hips replaced and you only spend 3 days in hospital. Why is it taking 7 days in New Zealand? And so it was a group of us sitting talking. And life's always good for a business person if you go back to what the customer wants. And you know, one of the oldest rules in business is the customer is king. For us in starting a hospital, that's what it was all about. But you know, people don't want to change. So when I went and talked to surgeons and said, hey, would you like to work in your own hospital? Would you like to put money into it? We couldn't find a single doctor that wanted to do that.
Really?
Nobody was prepared to take risk. And the important things to doctors weren't about how good the operating theatres were. It wasn't about how good the facilities were going to be or what it was going to be like for the patient experience. The first question that I got asked by every doctor was, what are you going to give us for lunch? And I found it unbelievable. But because these doctors had been brought up in a public health system where they had been paid a certain amount of money, they'd been fed really well, and they'd been given a good amount of hours that they had to work, they didn't know if they actually wanted to take a risk on private health care. So it took a lot of convincing, and it took a lot of getting the doctors to listen to what the customer, the patients, wanted to get them to change.
What about from a regulatory environment?
Regulatory, it was really easy. There was no reason regulatory why it couldn't happen. So as long as we you know, fitted in with all the regulations and we passed all the health audits, there was no reason, there was no barrier to entry. So we just started up one day, but I can tell you, really, really difficult when you're losing $250,000 a week.
Wow.
Makes you have some very, very interesting discussions around the board table. and it's all about courage.
Courage. Jim, tell me about the story you just told me about during lunch, how your customers actually tell you what it is they need.
Well, told you what we are today. We're a e-commerce company that has a big retail footprint. The retail footprint is in a franchise model. We think those businesses are best run by individual proprietors and families. And so that's how we have both a big e-commerce company and a retail footprint. If you took away the fact that we're in flowers and gifts, what we have is an incredible e-commerce capability with a very unique delivery logistic proposition of same and next day delivery. You lay on top of that we're in the flower and gift business, and that explains how we've expanded the company. But as you enter into that, the new technologies that impact us all, when we look at things we're going to do in our company, we look at it through what we call a Facebook filter. We think Facebook changes everything, and the other companies that'll be like Facebook that come along, there's Google Plus, and there's a Yammer, there's a dozen other social media companies. But it's so impactful to see how our public, using social tools, disregards the fact that we have a line, and these are the people who are on our staff, and these are the people who are our customers. That line has been erased by social media. So the example I was talking to you at lunch about was, I showed the ladies some of our newest products, and it dawned on me that all of our newest products weren't invented by any of the great florists in our company, any of the great artists or designers. They were suggestions by our customers. Not only do our customers suggest our products, our new innovations, but they suggest how they're made. They'll tell us what it should be called and exactly how we should advertise it. So we've been trying to embrace the idea of the customer coming behind the curtain and being a part of our company. And it's a very selfish motivation. They have great ideas, they're less expensive than our staff, and once they feel a part of what we are, they're much more likely to be frequent customers and to recommend us to their friends and family. So our most successful product that we've ever introduced in the flower category was suggested by a customer of ours. She and her sister, who tried to make this and couldn't, decided to work with us on an online panel where we had about 1,200 people who were opining about the product as we developed it. And then we turned out to a broader group of people, asked them what they think we should call this, and then we had a little contest in terms of the advertising. So the most successful product that's ever been introduced, not just by our company, but in our category, the florist category, in the world, was suggested by a customer, designed by a customer, named by a customer, and the advertising and creative were done by a collection of our customers. And that's how we see it going. Our job isn't anymore to be the creatives, it's to manage this process. But it's 24/7, our customers are awake someplace in the world all the time, so it does put a new burden on you, because it's a little bit like sipping out of a fire hose with all the ideas and the creative that comes to you.
Yeah.
Can I just say that it's not only the customers where the ideas come from, it's often the staff. We recently invented sushi ice cream, and it started because some people in our cafeteria were eating sushi, and one said to the other, you know, how can we make sushi out of ice cream? So they went and got some ice cream, and they started rolling it around. After about half an hour, they decided the ice cream had melted, but the idea hadn't. And so they went and had a talk to some of our chemists and some of our product test people, and we now sell sushi ice cream, which is an incredible innovation and something that nobody else has ever done. But it came from people that it wasn't their job to think it up, it was their job to pack ice cream, but it's probably one of the most brilliant we've had. Yeah. So it's about listening to everybody at every part of the value chain.
Can I buy the sushi ice cream here in Riyadh or not?
I beg your pardon?
Can I buy the sushi ice cream here in Riyadh already?
Yeah, no, unfortunately not.
Oh,
we're doing it in Asia, but we probably will bring it here next year.
Oh, I would love to taste it.
You know, Andrea, as we talk about social networks, it dawns on me that Yasmina is something that you're involved in, and you're wearing a pin that was given to you by Queen Beatrice in Holland and in the Netherlands. And it seems to me that what we're doing electronically is mimicking what the Dutch government has been doing a long time with their ambassadors around the world, making you feel close to the Netherlands and to the people of the Netherlands. It seems to me that what we're doing with Facebook or what we do at 1-800-Flowers in trying to create these connections are really mimicking what's gone on for hundreds of years in a small country like the Netherlands.
Yes, you know, we are invited by Her Majesty the Queen every 4 years to go and to get better knowledge of the country and of the people and to say what we are saying, what we are living, what services are we offering our honorary consuls.
What is it you're called? What is the title of your role with the Netherlands?
I am the honorary consul of the Netherlands covering the Syrian coast.
And so everyone in your area in Syria knows that you work with the Dutch government?
Yes, of course, yes.
And is there
especially
a Dutch community there?
I was nominated as the first female as a honorary consul, so I'm a little bit known in Syria.
And every 4 years you go back to Holland?
Yes, to the Netherlands, yes. This year we have a meeting, and 8 years ago I was chosen as the best second honorary consul representing the Netherlands all over the world. I was on stage, I was talking about Syria, about my activities, and again, I didn't know that I will be chosen as the second best honorary consul all over the world.
How many consuls are there around the world?
360.
So it's an informal network with a social component that's different than the official network.
Yes.
I wonder, do many other governments do that? Does the Saudi government do that around the world?
I know that the Danish are doing the same.
Okay. But you know, that's one of the great things about entrepreneurs, because we take the talents that we learn in our business and we can take them to the not-for-profit, or you can take them to political. You know, we're training, our people are learning and growing and being able to spread that talent base around the world.
Okay. We do have some time left, about 10 minutes or so, in order to take some questions from the audience. Are you ready to take some questions, if there are? How do you want me to do it? The lady in the back, I would say.
Hi, Hello, my name is Daniel Maina from Al-Nahda. And actually, it's not a question. I just want to thank Jim, because the first time I got flowers from my husband sent were from 1-800-Flowers.
He's a very wise man.
Thank you.
Not only for sending flowers, but for proposing to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's just my comment.
Okay. Is there another question? I think here in the front there's somebody. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to see the numbers. I'm sorry.
My name is Johnny Saikli. I'm from Beirut. Question to our Kiwi friend. When looking at multiple opportunities and deciding which one to go after, what would you say is the most important factor? Is it your motivation, your vision for it, your passion for it, or having the resources to put it together?
Combination. I never do anything that I'm not personally passionately in love with. I think the most important thing, though, is to make sure you've got the right people, because every idea will fail unless you surround yourself with the right people and you've got everybody. I describe running a business like mine as being a conductor in the orchestra. And you've got to put all those positions in the orchestra together and then bring them together. So although I might have an idea that's a brilliant idea to sell sushi ice cream in Antarctica, unless I've got somebody who really wants to go to Antarctica, who's really inculcated with my culture, it's going to fail. So I think for me, it's getting the right people resource.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Barharat, Senior Consultant at Ernst & Young. It's great to have you all here. And I must say, after listening to the session today, all I want to be is an entrepreneur. So I'm just quitting Ernst & Young and becoming an entrepreneur. But before I do that, I would like to know if there's a checklist I need to mark before I do. How can I tell that I'm an entrepreneur, or I could be an entrepreneur?
Who would want to take that question? That's a broad one.
There is no checklist, but maybe we can give you questions given by us, by Ernst & Young. So it's because they were choosing who is the best entrepreneur of the year. So maybe their question will enlighten a side of it.
No, it's interesting. I told Andrea this morning that I have a new partner in South America, and he was, up until a year ago, had a similar role that Andrea has in South America for Ernst & Young. And he was a partner there, and he ran the Entrepreneurial Services Program, the Developing Program. And after he'd achieved a certain tenure there, he had the option to retire, which he did. And he said he was so turned on by working in that community, especially in the country that he's in, which is on fire economically, that he decided to create a venture capital pool. He decided, after doing his checklist, that he didn't want to have those sleepless nights, so he raised a fund, and he's investing in other entrepreneurs. And I think that was a good choice, because whether he knows it or not, he is an entrepreneur, because he's taking the risk, he's out on his own, but he has such a wealth of experiences and such a Rolodex of contacts that I think he'll be a more effective entrepreneur helping other entrepreneurs. And so we just partnered together to, with an operating partner to buy his business and grow it in part of our network. So it's interesting that you say that, because just next week we'll close on that deal with a fellow who's a reformed Ernst & Young.
Thank you for the compliment.
I think there is one more.
My question for the two ladies, being a Saudi, what were the roles of your spouses supporting your entrepreneurship? Maybe your story will inspire our sisters here. What's the role of the spouse? Thank you.
I'll tell you about the role of all men in our lives. Let me start by my father. Let me pass through my son, who is helping me. Let me pass also by all heads of boards in which I am a member. If they would not have assisted us and helped us and encouraged us, you would not have been seen us here. So the husband is the same. And whenever you are working or he is working, I think it's equal. But he should also be working. If he is not working, here comes the problem.
I was incredibly fortunate in that my husband started the business that I worked in, and he gave me a stage on which to play. I mean, I could have very easily slipped on the stage and broken my leg and broken his bank balance, but he gave me the opportunity, and I think that many, many, many men wouldn't have, particularly because I had no business education. But he saw something in me which was a real hunger and a passion for the business, and I have enormous respect for him in that he was prepared to step back and give me as what when he married me, he said to me, "You are the second most important thing in my life." And I said, "Well, what's the first?" I was pretty worried about it. And he said, "The first is my business, because from the business comes the life, and it becomes the lifestyle." So, you know, I've been incredibly fortunate to have a very supportive husband that started me down the process.
Great. In the back.
Hi. Hi, my name is Amani Gaber. The question is, again, for the ladies. I was wondering, Madame Yasmin, how were you able not to sacrifice other things in your personal life in order to do or lead the lifestyle or the career you went after? And Diana, could you tell me one more time, what was the ice cream business called? So I could pay a visit.
The ice cream business is called New Zealand Natural, and it's available at a mall near you.
Is it available in Jeddah as well?
Sorry?
Is it available in Jeddah as well?
Yes, it is.
Which mall, do you know?
I can tell you afterwards.
Okay, great. Thanks.
But
and there's only 800 stores. You couldn't memorize the address of each of those?
I'm working on it, okay? but one of the things I'd like to say about being a mum and a working woman is it is a compromise. And if you speak to my children, they'd say the compromise is huge. But it's also gives them things that if you weren't a working mother, that they wouldn't be able to have, like the ability to travel, go to very good schools. At the moment, I have 2 children in America, one on a skiing course and one on an exchange program. If I hadn't been able to do the job that I'm doing, I wouldn't have been able to afford to send them to those things. So the compromise really is I might not be at every soccer match, but they have a much broader life than if I hadn't done what I do.
Okay, let me answer you. When my children were younger, you know, I didn't have yet all this internet and all these facilities. It was 30 years ago. My son is not 27. But when they were younger, I was running from the office home. I remember that I was holding files and running home just to spend as much time as possible with children. Then all this technology and everything, it became much easier. Now they're grown up, it's easier. I never traveled when they were young. And I always believe that it's the time, the quality of time that you are spending with your children and with your family is important. It's not the quantity, it's not how long is the time you are spending. I know a lot of mothers who are sitting, talking over the phone or watching TV and they never pay attention to their children. But to the contrary, it's at the same time with the quality time that you are spending with your family, which counts.
Yasmina, did you bring your children to work a lot?
My children, if they are working with me, yes, my son is, my daughter will never. She doesn't like what I'm doing.
When my youngest child was born, I used to bring her to work from the time she was 3 weeks old in a bassinet, and she used to sleep under the board table. So.
Really? Okay. I've got time for about one question, I think, if there's still one left. Oh, it's 2 already there. Please. Do somebody has a microphone over there? Thank you.
Okay, yes, my question is, at the beginning you said that entrepreneurs had the skills of optimism, networking, and risky. It's among a lot of things. My question is, have you at one point at time, at the beginning of your career, felt that you lack one or more of those and you had to gain them through work, and you did gain them? And does that differ between entrepreneurs who had experience before through family business and the family and the entrepreneur who started from scratch by the age of 15? That's my first question. The other thing is I wanted to comment about the guy who just quit his job. There's a whole list for entrepreneur skills, but I think you just did the first thing entrepreneurs do, which they risk their job to start their business. So go ahead. My friend here wants to ask just one question.
Did you get the question? Because I'm not quite sure.
Can I ask you please to repeat it in Arabic? فينك تسأليني السؤال بالعربي الله يخليكي.
Okay.
أول سؤال.
The first question is, did you lack one or more of the skills that you said entrepreneurs must have, like networking and risk? Did you lack it? You didn't have it and you had to gain it afterwards? Like networking,
risk takers, networking, optimists.
Yeah, I have to clarify that because I'm not a networking person. I'm not a social person, but I had to gain that because I have to be the right entrepreneur to be competitive as I should. Thank you. Is that clear?
I didn't get it.
I think I more or less understood the question.
I think some people, it sounds like if you look at the list of qualities that you listed, well, I know someone's looking at that list and says, I know I'm a shy person, so I'm not going to be an effective networker. Well, don't you know entrepreneurs who don't hit every mark on that checklist?
Absolutely.
It's not a deal killer if you're not good at one of those things.
But isn't it that you've got to know that you're not good at it? I mean, personally, I'm no good at numbers, so I surround myself with people that are very numerate.
Exactly.
It's the same with being an entrepreneur. Just because you're shy or just because you haven't got one of those characteristics doesn't mean that you're not going to make it. It just means that you have to surround yourself with the talent that you lack.
Yeah, I think that's a good
or pick a bit, it doesn't take a lot of personality to write computer code. No. So picking the business that matches your skill set By the way, as you go along, those other skills are going to develop. But picking something that matches your skill set, I think, is a good way to go. And the fact that this fellow just turned in his resignation to Ernst & Young is going to be a real shock to his wife.
Okay, thank you. Another one. I think, yeah.
Okay, this question is for all four speakers. 3 factors of success. If you can pinpoint 3 factors of success to your success, of course, what would it be?
Can I start? I think that looking ahead, think positively, and do whatever you like. And if you cannot do whatever you like, love what you are doing. Yeah.
For me, it's delight my customer every day. Remember who the customer is and make sure that your customer is always right.
The thing that I notice watching all the great entrepreneurial role models that I've had in my life, some of the great entrepreneurs I've met here that I enjoyed dinner with last night, every one of them has been dealt more than their fair share of setbacks. The difference between successful entrepreneurs and everybody else is that the successful entrepreneur recovers quickly. You get a jab in the stomach, it hurts, you go down. You don't dwell on it and say, I'm never going to do that again, I never want that to happen again. They get up and they get over it in a hurry. Sometimes they even turn that into a joke or part of their legend as a story. So the thing I've learned from my heroes in my life, young and old, is that successful people, whether they're entrepreneurs or in any other field, make as many mistakes as everyone else, probably more. But they learn from it and get over it very quickly.
Yeah, good. Good one.
Just very quickly, just to finish, you only play the movie twice in your mind. If something goes wrong, you play it once to look at it, and you play the second time to learn from it, and then you delete the movie.
Okay. So I have run out of time, and I really need to wrap it up, so to say. I owe you a big thank, the 3 of you, for speaking out, as the title of this session was, for being so open, and I think for really showing, I hope, the audience what entrepreneurship looks like, and I think you all individually are great entrepreneurs, and you are not, so to say, awarded for nothing in our Entrepreneur of the Year company. You are true winners. Thank you as audience, and thank you very much for listening.